The illusion of our blissful, harmonious home was shattered after my 3-day trip to Chicago, where I was supposed to address our supplier's delivery problems. Upon my arrival, I was met with the shocking news that the IRS had seized the company earlier that day due to unpaid payroll taxes. The company had been grappling with financial difficulties for quite some time. I promptly made my way back to the airport and boarded the earliest flight home without informing Isabella. This lack of communication proved fortunate, as it led to an unexpected discovery. Isabella and I had been inseparable since our teen age, and it was a widely held belief that we would eventually tie the knot. We were the epitome of a perfect couple, a love story that seemed destined for a fairy tale ending. However, we chose to postpone our nuptials until after college, eager to explore the world and savor life's experiences before embarking on married life. But our relationship was not without its challenges. We broke up twice, once during our junior year of high school and again during our sophomore year of college. Isabella felt that she needed to see what else was out there. Our first breakup lasted only 3 weeks, and when Isabella returned, she admitted that she had made a mistake and called herself foolish. Meanwhile, I had dated a few girls, but none of them measured up to Isabella. I realized that I had the best thing with her, and I almost ruined it. During our time apart in college, I decided to explore what else was out there for me. I soon discovered that many girls were not as committed to waiting until marriage as Isabella had been. In just 5 weeks, I had my first time with a girl named Sophia. Then there was Rachel, who introduced me to new experiences, and Tina, who showed me different aspects of intimacy. Finally, there was Monica, who taught me about mutual pleasure. But I couldn't shake the thought that Isabella might be exploring similar experiences. I knew it was a double standard, but I still wished that I had shared those firsts with her. About 6 weeks after Isabella decided to see other guys, I returned from class to find her on our front porch steps. It felt like déjà vu from high school. I had the best thing with Isabella all along, and I hadn't realized it until now. I asked for her forgiveness, and I loved her for what felt like forever, so forgiving her was natural. We never discussed our time apart. When I tried to be intimate with her, she said that she wanted to wait until marriage, and I respected that. I wasn't surprised to learn that she wasn't a virgin on our wedding night. I could sense that she knew that I was aware that I wasn't her first. We both landed good jobs in our respective fields, and the next 4 years went smoothly. I occasionally traveled for work, but never for more than 3 days at a time. The day after Isabella's 27th birthday, she shared that she was expecting. She explained that medication she had taken for the flu had interfered with her birth control pills. 9 months later, we welcomed our son, Mark. Isabella returned to work after just 6 weeks, as her workplace had an on-site daycare. She soon expressed a desire for another child, hoping to have them close in age for easier parenting. I was fine with it, so when she told me 6 weeks later that she was expecting again, she mentioned that she felt 2 children were enough and asked if I would mind if she got her tubes tied. I felt that it was her decision, and if she didn't want to go through another pregnancy, who was I to object? A month later, our daughter, Chloe, joined our family. Like with Mark, Isabella took only 6 weeks off work before returning, bringing both babies with her. Over the next 6 years, we each earned 2 promotions, and our income was solid. We seemed like the perfect couple, rarely arguing and maintaining an active sex life. We were intimate about 3 times a week, which I understood was quite good compared to other couples with children who had been married as long as we had. That day, I arrived home around 5:40 p.m., and Isabella had not yet returned from work. I considered making dinner for us, but instead, I decided to take Isabella and the kids out to eat. As I was settling into our home office, the sound of the garage door opening echoed through the house, signaling Isabella's arrival. By the time I saved my work and exited the computer program, she was entering the house. As I started to open the office door, I caught Isabella saying, "Stop that," followed by a man's voice insisting, "You don't really want me to stop, do you?" I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. "Actually, let's not even wait for the bedroom," the man said. "I'd like to do it over the back of your couch." "You're quite the enthusiast, Lucas," Isabella remarked. He affirmed, "Indeed, I am, and you relish it." The couch seems like a splendid idea. Shall I take off my underwear? Isabella inquired. Remove them, he instructed. Their exchange momentarily ceased, and soon, the room was filled with Isabella's sounds of delight, accompanied by her familiar moans that pierced my heart. I hastily grabbed my mobile phone, switched it to camera mode, and made my way towards the living room. I was already certain of the person I would encounter there. I had met him and his wife on numerous occasions, at company Christmas parties and picnics. Isabella was oblivious to my return home. I had left my car at the dealership due to a brake recall and had taken a cab home from the airport, so they wouldn't suspect a thing. I managed to capture 5 clear photographs of them before they noticed my presence and 3 more as they hurriedly disentangled themselves. As they scrambled to get dressed, I stormed towards Lucas. He could tell from the look on my face what I was about to do, and lucky for him, I wasn't blocking the door. Since his pants were already unzipped, he managed to bolt out of there before I could get my hands on him. I ignored Isabella and marched into the kitchen, grabbed the phone book, and started flipping through the pages to find Lucas's number. As I punched in the digits, Isabella rushed in. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "I'm calling Laura. She deserves to know what kind of man she's married to," I snapped, referring to Lucas's wife. Isabella yanked the phone cord out of the wall. "Don't. You'll only make things worse." "Worse? You think things aren't bad enough already?" I shouted. "Especially for Lucas and Laura?" "That's not the point," Isabella shot back. "We can't hurt Laura like that. She's an innocent bystander in all this." "Innocent? She's married to a cheating bastard, and she has a right to know. If she decides to stay with him after that, that's her problem. But from now on, I'm going to make his life a living hell. First, I'll tell Laura everything and offer to show her the pictures if she wants proof. Then, I'm going to talk to a lawyer about nailing his ass at work. I'm pretty sure your company's got rules against bosses sleeping with their employees. And finally, I'm going to find him, and when I do, he won't be walking away in one piece." Isabella's eyes widened. "You can't do any of that. It'll cost you too much." "Cost me? How? You tell Laura, and she leaves him? I'll kick you out and move him in here with me and the kids. You go after the company, and Lucas and I both lose our jobs? I'll make damn sure you pay through the nose for alimony and child support in the divorce. And if you go after him physically, you'll end up behind bars for assault. The smart thing to do is to put this behind us and move on with our lives." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Move on? After what I just saw? "Yes, move on," Isabella insisted. "My thing with Lucas hasn't hurt our marriage. We have a good life, you and me. I've been a good wife to you, and our relationship is solid. I love you, I really do. So, you're telling me you can sleep with him and then claim to love me? How the hell does that work?" I snapped, my voice laced with anger and disbelief. Isabella's eyes widened as she quickly tried to explain, "It's not like that. Lucas, he's just about physical satisfaction. Amazing physical satisfaction, but that's it. Nothing more." I scoffed. "Oh, and finding out you cheated on me and then hearing you critique my performance in bed? That's rich. I never said I was lacking in that department. That's not what I meant." Isabella pleaded. "You're an incredible husband and father. Our sex life is great, honestly. But Lucas, he provides something different that I can't get from you." "Is that so?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "And what might that be?" Isabella hesitated, biting her lip before finally admitting, "It's his size. Lucas is well endowed, and it offers a different experience." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you kidding me? Size shouldn't be an issue. We've had a wonderful life together until now. If you're saying I should be okay with you seeking that elsewhere occasionally, and that it hasn't hurt us because it's been going on for years, then you're out of your mind." Shaking my head, I pressed further, "Speaking of which, just how long has this been going on? And how did it even start?" Isabella sighed, looking down at her hands as she confessed, "It started before Lucas, back in college when we took that break. I wanted to explore other relationships, and one of the first guys I got involved with was gifted in that area. It was exciting, and apparently, these well-endowed men like to share their experiences. He told others about my enthusiasm, and I ended up having flings with 5 of them before realizing that I wanted to be with you. First off, if size was so important to you, why didn't you just marry one of those guys? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Isabella sighed. They were all so full of themselves, you know? Like their size was the only thing that mattered, and they expected women to be falling at their feet. I wanted more than just a physical connection. That's why I chose you, the man I truly loved. I nodded, processing her words. Okay, but after being with those well-endowed men for almost 6 weeks, why did you insist on waiting until marriage to be intimate with me? She looked down, her voice softer. I did love you, and I knew that. But after those encounters, I was just so disenchanted with men in general. I wasn't in the right headspace for intimacy. It wasn't fair to you, I know that now, but that's where I was at the time. And everything was fine until that company Christmas party, right? The one I missed because of that business trip to Seattle? Isabella nodded. Yeah, I had a few too many drinks and was feeling a bit mischievous. When Lucas danced me under the mistletoe and kissed me, I felt his presence pressing against my leg. I was tipsy and channeled my inner Mae West, saying, "Is that a roll of quarters in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?" She continued. Lucas, who was also drunk, said it was definitely bigger than a roll of quarters. I laughed and said, "That's what they all say." He claimed he could prove it, and I challenged him to do so. We did, and we spent the next 2 nights together. It continued until he met and married Laura. But when Laura got pregnant and stopped being intimate with him, our relationship reignited. From then on, we never stopped. Look, it hasn't hurt us negatively, Isabella insisted. I need to go to Rachel's to pick up the kids. I clarified, so, you have your sister covering for you while you cheat on me? No, she thinks I'm working late. I asked her to watch the kids after school, and now I need to fetch them. Once I return, I'll prove that nothing has changed, Isabella said as she headed out to her car. Staring at her in disbelief, I realized that her actions hadn't hurt our relationship simply because I was unaware. I reconnected the phone and dialed Laura. She was upset by what I shared and wanted to see the photos that I had taken. We arranged to meet for lunch the next day. Upstairs, I began moving my belongings to the guest room. While hanging my suits, a troubling thought struck me. Isabella had said, "He can move in here with me and our kids," implying that the children were hers and Lucas's. Could Lucas be the father of my children? If that were true, they would both face my wrath. I had just finished unpacking when Isabella returned home with the kids. Finding me in the guest room, she asked, "What are you doing?" "Creating some distance between us," I replied. She seemed puzzled. "Why? Did you forget what I saw just 2 hours ago?" I reminded her. "You expect me to accept Lucas's leftovers? Come on, Isabella. It's never hurt you before." "Fine, I'll shower first," she retorted. "You're missing the point. I want nothing to do with your affair," I responded. "You're overreacting, Rob. I don't love Lucas. I love you. I have sex with Lucas, but I make love with you," Isabella insisted. "Your words said otherwise when you suggested that I leave and let Lucas move in." "And there wasn't much love in your threats during the divorce talk," I countered. "I didn't mean it. I just wanted you to pause before calling Laura," Isabella explained. "Well, I did think it over, Isabella. And that's why I moved here. We're adults. We can discuss this, but I need space," I said, leaving to spend time with the kids, helping them with their homework and playing until bedtime. Later, settling into my new room, I heard the shower and reflected on Isabella's words. It's never hurt you before, I thought. As I was drifting off to sleep, Isabella entered the room, attempting to embrace me. I sat up abruptly, pushing her away so forcefully that she tumbled off the bed. "What part of I want nothing to do with your affair? Don't you understand, Isabella? Stay away from me." She stood, left the room, and I tried to sleep. The night was restless, leaving me groggy. By morning, Isabella had prepared breakfast, but I ignored her, grabbed my car keys, and left for breakfast at a local diner before heading to work. At 10, I called Mike, a trusted attorney and friend. detailing my situation and asking to discuss a divorce. He agreed to meet at the Rusty Nail at 5:30. I connected my phone to the computer, transferred the photos of Isabella and Lucas, printed 3 sets, and placed them in envelopes. By noon, I arrived at Mario's Italian restaurant to find Laura already there. Rising to greet her, I kissed her cheek, saying, "I wish that our meeting was under better circumstances." After some casual conversation and ordering, I recounted the previous day's events and handed her the envelope with the photos. She calmly reviewed them. Her composure surprised me. She returned the photos to the envelope and asked, "So, what now? You're gonna divorce her or what?" I shook my head. After seeing that? There's no coming back from this. Laura sighed. I might just do the same. This isn't the first time he's pulled this crap, thinking he can get away with it because of his size. I forgave him once, but I told him it was his last chance. You might not even get the chance to kick him out. I'll be watching for him, and when I find him, he's gonna pay. She suggested putting him in the hospital and moving his stuff there. And if you do catch him, give him a few extra kicks from me, will ya? I nodded, and we left. Talking to Mike only confirmed what I already knew. In our state's no-fault system, assets would be split down the middle. Isabella would get custody, and I'd be on the hook for child support. With our incomes being pretty close, I wouldn't owe alimony or separate maintenance. Mike brought up the issue of the kid's paternity and advised getting a DNA test. I handed him 2 sets of photos. I want to take legal action against Lucas for alienation of affections and against their workplace for not enforcing their policy against relationships between supervisors and subordinates. Mike warned me, "You know, this could put Isabella's job at risk and increase your financial obligations." I know. Do it anyway, I insisted. We went over a few more things, and he advised against leaving the house and letting Isabella have control. With kids in the picture, he suggested trying to coexist until the divorce process was clearer and the court laid out some guidelines. Let the court decide who stays and who goes. But keep in mind, courts around here tend to side with the wife, especially when there are kids involved. It's not going to be an easy road, Mike cautioned. When I got home, Isabella was pissed. You just had to go and tell Laura, didn't you? We could have worked this out, but you had to drag her into it. She kicked him out because of you. It's not because of me, Isabella. It's because of what you and he did. And, honestly, I wish she hadn't kicked him out. It's just gonna make it harder to find him. And, when I do, I promise you, his prized possession won't be working right for a long time, I said. That night, while the household slept, I rose at 3 to swab the cheeks of my children with Q-tips. I left the samples at a nearby lab on my way to work, offering extra payment for expedited testing. Isabella's words, "Just remember that I warned you, Rob," stuck with me. I was at the bank when the lobby doors opened at 9. I emptied all our safe deposit boxes and went to another bank down the street to open an account in my name. I knew that I would have to account for this during the divorce, but it ensured that I could cover the house payments and take care of the kids. Back at work, I had another idea and canceled all our joint credit cards to prevent Isabella from running up cash advance balances. This proactive approach proved crucial. When I returned home that evening, a man handed me an envelope, saying, "You've been served. You should move at least 500 feet from this house due to a temporary restraining order in this envelope." Inside, the order confirmed that I couldn't come within 500 feet of the house, Isabella, or the kids. Isabella's lawyer had acted swiftly, unlike Mike, but neither of us had anticipated the urgency. As I looked up, Isabella smirked from the house. I backed the car out and drove to the corner to call Mike. After updating him, I asked how to retrieve my belongings. He mentioned having contacts in the sheriff's department and promised to check and call me back. While on the phone, I instructed him to change the divorce grounds from irreconcilable differences to infidelity and to pursue legal action against both Lucas and Isabella's company. Go after them hard, Mike. Make them pay, I emphasized. He phoned me back within 15 minutes, saying that 2 deputies would arrive within the next 30 minutes to help me access the house. However, until the court made further arrangements, I could only retrieve my clothes and toiletries. 20 minutes later, 2 patrol cars arrived at the house. I started my car and parked behind them. The deputies introduced themselves, advising me to wait for their signal before approaching. They then went up to the house and rang the bell. Isabella answered, and after a brief exchange, the deputies signaled for me to come over. They reminded me that I could only take my clothes and toiletries before escorting me inside. On my way to the stairs, I peeked into the kitchen to check on the kids. They were absent, but Lucas was there, sitting with a beer that I had purchased. Despite my anger, I refrained from confronting him with the deputies present. As we headed upstairs, Isabella stood in the doorway, watching me pack. Succumbing to a childish impulse, I remarked, without looking her way, "You messed up big this time, Isabella." Throughout the day at the office, I pondered our relationship and eventually concluded that we could not resolve our issues. After all, she had professed her love for me. "Some love, Isabella," I murmured, shaking my head. "Emotional manipulation, a restraining order? Our chances are gone, Isabella. Reflect on that once I'm gone." I shut my suitcase, turned, and left the house. The following day, Isabella phoned me at work. "Considering what you said last night, I want to discuss things," she proposed. "No way, Isabella. Your actions yesterday, combined with letting me see you in the house that you barred me from, ended it and dashed any hope for us. Plus, I can't meet and talk with you. Remember the 500-foot restriction?" I said, hanging up. 2 days later, I returned to the house with 2 court-appointed supervisors to oversee my belongings removal. Throughout, Isabella persisted in asking me to talk, but I brushed her off until I was loading the final items into the U-Haul. Inside the bedroom, amidst her pleas that we could fix things if I would communicate, I beckoned her over. Pointing to the master bathroom counter, her expression dropped. There lay men's toiletries that were not mine. "Goodbye, Isabella. Just know that you brought this on yourself, and it could have been prevented." After that, events unfolded rapidly. Isabella received legal papers at her workplace, accusing her of infidelity. Lucas, also served at work, faced a lawsuit for causing the breakdown of our marriage. Additionally, their employer was taken to court for neglecting to enforce their guidelines prohibiting relationships between supervisors and subordinates. 3 days following this, both Lucas and Isabella lost their jobs. As Lucas's superior, he faced the brunt of the consequences. But Isabella contested her dismissal, alleging that Lucas had threatened her job security if she didn't comply with him. The company didn't buy her story, leading to her dismissal being upheld. Subsequently, Isabella took legal action against them for wrongful termination. Throughout these legal battles, Isabella and Lucas continued to reside in our home. 3 weeks post being served, we attended a hearing to extend the temporary restraining order. However, the judge rejected the request and reprimanded Isabella's attorney for even submitting it. A week later, we attended the initial divorce hearing. Mike cautioned me that the odds were not in my favor. They'll likely grant Isabella temporary custody of the kids and exclusive use of the house until the divorce terms are finalized. You'll still need to cover the mortgage and utilities, and you might face temporary alimony and child support. Her lawyer is also pushing to reclaim the funds that you withdrew from the accounts, and I expect the judge will address that," he said, handing me an envelope. "This could influence the child support aspect," he added. After he read it, Mike responded, "Damn, Rob. I'm truly sorry. Any clue who the biological father might be?" I asked. "I'd wager Isabella's certain that it's his," Mike said. "While it might not impact this initial hearing, since Child Protective Services will want to authenticate the documents, it'll certainly influence the final divorce settlement." The hearing unfolded largely as Mike predicted. Isabella was granted temporary custody of the house and kids, along with interim alimony. I was directed to reimburse Isabella half of the withdrawn amounts from our checking and savings accounts. However, a few of the certificates of deposit slipped through the cracks, and I didn't bring them up. Isabella's attorney sought an order for me to cover his fees, but Mike intervened. This isn't a typical divorce scenario where my client is sued and his wife responds. Here, she initiated the action against my client. She should bear her own legal expenses, he argued. The judge ruled in our favor on that issue, and I couldn't help but smile when, based on advice from Child Protective Services, he set the child support amount. Mike objected, providing the DNA test results proving that I was not the kid's biological father. I was directed to pay interim child support, pending CPS verification. Should the documents prove accurate, any support that I had paid would be deducted from Isabella's share of the settlement. Regarding the house, the judge asked if I understood the court's orders. I get the ruling, but not the reasoning. Why is my adulterous wife granted custody of our children? Is it beneficial for them to live with a woman who moved her lover in on the day that she filed for divorce? What kind of example does that set? We haven't even been apart for 6 weeks, and she already has another man in her bed. Plus, why should I maintain a home for the man that my wife cheated with? The judge simply instructed CPS to investigate my claims and report back within 10 days. As we exited the courtroom, Isabella approached me, saying, "How could you do this to your kids?" "They're not mine, Isabella, and your reaction to Mike mentioning the DNA test said it all." "You've known all along?" I said, walking away. Unbeknownst to her, getting a cent of that money soon was not likely. I thought that I could delay payment for weeks before facing potential court action for contempt. Even then, I could probably hold off for another week or two. The day following the hearing, Mike called to inform me of a settlement offer from Isabella's former employer. "It's a bit low, and I believe that we can negotiate a better deal." "I'll leave the decision to you since you're more knowledgeable about these matters," he said. Honestly, my initial lawsuit against them was mainly to get back at Isabella and Lucas. I was content knowing that they had lost their jobs. On another note, we shouldn't expect much from Lucas, especially now that he was unemployed. Whatever he managed to scrape together would likely go to his ex-wife for child support and alimony. Regardless, we would keep the pressure on him and make him cover his legal fees. If we won, we could secure a judgment against him, which would be a constant reminder of his actions. Mike's comment about Lucas potentially paying alimony reminded me that I hadn't spoken to Laura recently. I reached out and inquired about her situation. Things aren't great. It's tough with Lucas unemployed and not meeting his court-ordered payments. Fortunately, I withdrew funds from our accounts before kicking him out. I hate to say it, but things might worsen. Turns out both my kids are Lucas's biological children, and he'll likely owe Isabella child support once my divorce is finalized. Or, perhaps not, given that they're living together. They are? I was not aware. How's your case against Lucas's former employer progressing? I clarified the situation, and she appreciated the heads up, saying that she would consult her attorney about it. If you need any assistance, just let me know. I hope that you're not implying what I think that you are. And, what would that be? I asked. Just because of what Isabella did doesn't mean that I would do the same to you for revenge. That's a terrible assumption to make, she said, ending the call. Her final remarks left me feeling sour and kept me in a bad mood throughout the day. By the time that I finished work, I was eager to confront Lucas, assuming that he would be job hunting since he was unemployed. I took the next day off and parked my car up the street from the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the kids to leave for school at 7. 20 minutes later, Lucas's Ford Explorer exited my garage and drove down the street. I trailed him to a downtown parking garage, parking a few spaces away. I stepped out, crouched down, and positioned myself between him and the elevator. When he reached my spot, I stood up and greeted him. "Good morning, Lucas. It's a good one for me, but I can't say the same for you." He attempted to flee, but I caught him, spun him around, and pushed him against a concrete pillar. I then proceeded to physically assault him, concluding with 6 forceful kicks to his groin. Afterward, I left him on the ground, groaning in pain. The following day, 2 police officers arrived at my workplace and arrested me for assault and battery. I spent the night in jail and appeared before a judge the next day. After hearing the charges, I pleaded not guilty. "Are you certain that you want to plead not guilty, Mr. Turner?" "Mr. Johnson is quite convinced that you attacked him," the judge said. "I did confront him, yes. But I don't consider it assault and battery. I was delivering justice," I responded. "The law? I'm not interested. The legal system falls short in cases like mine. My wife cheats on me for years, leaving me responsible for her lover's children. And what do the courts do? They favor her. She keeps the house, and I'm ordered to foot the bill while she moves her lover in. I'm left paying for his living expenses, supporting her unfaithful partner with alimony. And when the divorce is finalized, she'll get half of everything that she gained through deceit. The courts favor the wrong person. If the law won't be fair to me, then I'll have to take matters into my own hands, I said, my voice filled with anger and frustration. You did break the law, and you've acknowledged that yourself, the judge said, shaking his head. No, I haven't. I'm admitting to pursuing the justice that I deserve. I'm more than willing to present my case to a jury, I insisted. While you may be willing, I won't allow the court's resources to be wasted on this trial. You openly admitted to stomping his groin. Therefore, I have to find you guilty and sentence you to 6 months in the Fairfax County facility, the judge declared. Thank you, I said, surprising him. Excuse me? You've actually helped me find justice regarding my wife. For those 6 months, she won't receive any alimony or child support. I won't be making the house payments. Plus, since she lost her job, she can't afford the mortgage. The house will foreclose, leaving her and her lover without a place. My jail time also means that I'll lose my job. So, she won't get any money from me when I'm released. So, thank you. You're willing to sacrifice your home's equity? The judge asked, taken aback. What equity? We took out a second mortgage for central air and a pool. Selling it wouldn't yield much after costs, maybe a couple of thousand split between us. I'd rather she lose even that. I wouldn't see any of it anyway. By the time that I'm out, I'll owe 6 months of back alimony. I'm sure the legal system would redirect any proceeds to cover that debt, I said, shrugging. I served 4 months in county jail. Mike visited me weekly, and during his 3rd visit, he mentioned a settlement offer from Isabella's former employer. I told him to accept it, cash the check immediately, and keep the funds away from Isabella. A surprise came at the end of my 1st month when Isabella showed up to see me. In jail, they only allow approved visitors. You provide a list of acceptable visitors, and they check with you if someone not on the list wants to visit. Isabella was not on my list, but I was curious enough to agree. Sitting across from her, separated by the partition, she smirked and said, "Orange isn't your color, Rob." "I'm limited to what I can wear here, Isabella." "What do you need?" I asked, my voice cold. "I need you to sort out some money for me. The mortgage and utilities are due, and I've had no luck finding work." "It's hard to feed the kids," she said, her eyes pleading. "If your lover had just taken his stomping for messing with my wife instead of pressing charges, I wouldn't be here, and your financial situation wouldn't be this dire. He's the reason that I'm in here. So, take your money issues to him," I said, my anger simmering. "When it comes to providing for the kids, they're his responsibility. He should take care of them." "How can you say that, Rob?" "Yes, he's biologically related to them, but you've been their father from day one. They don't know anything about Lucas. They only know that he's in our home while you're still married to me. I'm saying that you're their real dad, Rob. You've been there for them since the beginning, loving them unconditionally until you found out about Lucas and me. You can't just switch off that love for them. They're innocent in all this. If you're angry, direct it at me, not them," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "The issue, Isabella, is if I give you money for food, it won't only feed the kids. It'll also support you and Lucas. I could never hurt you the way that I did Lucas, but I wouldn't feel bad watching both of you struggle. You're not concerned that we'll lose the house without your help, Rob? You mean the house that you kicked me out of, the one that you share with your lover? Since Lucas is now the man of your house, he should be contributing. You need to try harder to find a job, Isabella. And push Lucas to do the same. He's having trouble finding work, and whatever little he manages to earn, Laura takes a good share of it. At least he's got that impressive tool that you're so infatuated with. So, it's not a complete loss for you," I said, standing up and leaving. My sister, Rachel, was my only regular visitor, seeing me once a week. During one of her visits, about 3 weeks after Isabella's, she mentioned that Isabella had reached out to her, asking her to persuade me to give her some money. Isabella claimed that she would use it solely for the kids. You might want to consider it, Rob. I hate to see the kids struggling, Rachel advised. My plan is to seek full custody when I'm out. My angle is to prove that she can't properly care for them, especially with her living with Lucas. If she and her less than stellar biological father can't even provide food, the courts might consider my case. Plus, I don't trust her after she deceived me with a smile for over 6 years. I can't believe anything that she says. Will you be upset if I help them? I asked, looking at her. I'm stuck in jail, Isabella. I can't stop you from doing what you think is right, I said, shrugging. Rachel did assist them, but not financially. She bought clothes for the kids and occasionally delivered groceries from her to them. I learned that Isabella had secured a decent job. However, things were not smooth at home. Lucas had given up job hunting because he felt that available positions were beneath him or didn't offer adequate pay, based on what he told the kids during visits. Rachel discovered that Lucas and Isabella frequently argued about his laziness at home. Hearing this gave me some satisfaction. During my 3rd month, Laura surprised me by visiting. Since she was not on my approved visitor list, they asked if I wanted to see her. Curiosity led me to agree, recalling our last talk and wondering her reason for visiting. Sitting across from her, separated by the partition, she said, "Orange isn't really your shade, Rob." "I'm limited to what I can wear here, Laura." "What do you need?" I asked, my voice cold. "I feel guilty, Rob," she said, her eyes filled with regret. "Guilty? What for?" I questioned, taken aback. "For treating you poorly, Rob." "When was that?" I asked, my eyebrows furrowing. "The last phone call that we had." I was in a bad mood and down on men, but that wasn't an excuse for what I said. "I'm sorry, Rob," she clarified, her voice filled with sincerity. "Well, it did upset me, Laura. But it's okay. I also wanted to thank you for something, Laura." "I gave you something to thank me for?" she asked, her eyes widening. "You didn't realize it, but you did. A friend from college is a nurse at our doctor's office, where Lucas goes. Marcia tells me that Lucas has been discussing erectile issues with Dr. Martin. It seems that his ability to perform has been affected, which is satisfying, given what he did to me. You might find it interesting that your wife isn't benefiting from his cheating either, Rob," I disclosed, a smirk playing on my lips. "Really?" Laura seemed taken aback. "Yes, definitely, Rob." We continued our conversation until she left, asking me to call her upon my release. I served 4 months in county jail but got released early due to overcrowding. Having served 2/3 of my sentence and being deemed non-threatening, I qualified for early release despite my assault charge. Mike was there to pick me up upon my release. He drove me to a weekly rate motel, where I booked a room while I looked for an apartment. On our way, Mike updated me on recent developments. Isabella isn't contesting the divorce, but she's fighting for custody, alimony, and child support. I don't think that she stands a chance, though. I'll request a hearing now that you're out. And, after that, it's just a waiting game, he said. "What's your plan for the settlement check from Isabella's employer?" he inquired. "I'll keep it safe from Isabella's grasp until the divorce is finalized. Now that you're free, you'll likely be summoned to court over the payments that you owe Isabella." "No sweat. I'll just say that I couldn't pay her while incarcerated. They might argue that I could have arranged it or told her where I banked." "No chance. She'd find a way to access all the funds. Given how the courts here favor women, that could work in her favor," I said, my voice filled with determination. The next morning, I stopped by my workplace and asked Frank about job openings. He told me to get to work and not bother him with silly questions. That afternoon, I called Isabella to arrange a visit with the kids, and she laughed it off. "Once I see some money, you can see the kids, Rob," she retorted, hanging up. I ended the call and reached out to Child Protective Services, explaining Isabella's refusal to let me see the kids. I was told that she had the right to deny me access, as the documentation confirmed that I was not the kid's biological parent, and she held maternal rights. Visitation, if any, needed court approval. "Your response suggests that I shouldn't count on gaining custody, Rob," I said, my voice filled with disappointment. "I can't reveal our court recommendations, Rob," she said, her voice firm. After expressing my gratitude, I phoned Isabella, planning a visit with the kids at 7, bringing money along. I withdrew $500, placed it in an envelope, and arrived promptly at 7. Isabella opened the door, saw the money, and moved aside. My heart sank, seeing Lucas in the living room. His quick exit mirrored my shock. Mark and Chloe stared at me from the couch. I had hoped for a joyful reunion, but Chloe's words changed everything. "Why did you hurt our father, Rob?" "Mom says that Lucas is our real dad," she said, her eyes filled with confusion. Isabella's smirk confirmed her influence. Frustrated, I headed for the door. Isabella chuckled, "Come back soon, Rob." Snatching the envelope, I snapped, "Rotten hell, you deceitful strumpet," and stormed out. From there, events unfolded rapidly. I was brought before the court and mandated to pay Isabella the original court-ordered amounts, along with back alimony and child support. I told the judge that I would sooner die than give a cheating strumpet a cent. He warned me to comply or face contempt charges. I retorted that it was the first right thing that he had said, and he then sentenced me to either $500 or 30 days. I chose the latter. On the 30th day, I returned to court. The judge asked if I had changed my stance. "I won't pay child support for kids that the court admits are not mine. Regarding alimony, I'm okay with that. But I won't cover house payments while my estranged wife harbors her lover. Remove him, and I'll resume payments," I said, my voice firm. "You're claiming that CPS acknowledges that you're not the father, Rob?" The judge questioned, his eyebrows furrowing. "Yes, they do. I'll adjourn this hearing to verify your claim with CPS, Rob," he declared, his voice firm. Exiting the courtroom, I caught Isabella's expression. She realized that the child support decision might favor me, and she was furious. She had been banking on another win against me. The following day, I returned to court. The CPS report confirmed that I was not the kid's biological father and that Lucas was living with Isabella. Consequently, the judge nullified the child support and cut Isabella's alimony by a third, retroactively. I still had to settle the back payments and house expenses. The judge surprised everyone, especially Isabella, by ruling that since she had a boarder, she would be responsible for utilities and house insurance. Until that point, I was ready to reject the ruling and take another 30 days. However, I chose to comply. My reasoning was a bit twisted. Isabella would be upset about the judge's decision, but seeing me return to jail might lift her spirits. I felt the need to deny her that satisfaction. While she might feel some joy in getting money from me, paying less than she anticipated, combined with the lack of child support and the smirk that I would give her, would dampen her glee. The judge demanded the payment within 48 hours or he would issue a warrant for my arrest. The smile that I gave Isabella as I exited seemed to infuriate her, which made my day. Back at the jail, I was processed out and then headed to a restaurant for a good meal. Afterward, I went to Rachel's to collect my belongings that she had saved from my motel. While I was incarcerated, we chatted, and I mentioned how Isabella had influenced the kids. Rachel advised me not to take it personally, as they were just kids, and since I was not around, Isabella was their only influence. "Young children are easily swayed," she said. "I would have an opportunity to speak to them," she assured me. But that moment never came. At the final court hearing, I was taken aback. Isabella was granted full custody, and I was not even allowed visitation. According to the CPS report, both the mother and the biological father believed that I would disrupt the kids' lives. Since the biological father planned to marry Isabella and form a family with her, the judge decided that it was best for the kids not to have me involved. The judge also ruled that Isabella could stay in the family home until the kids turned 18. After that, the house would be sold, with the proceeds divided between us. If Isabella married before then, the house could be sold immediately. The reduced alimony remained, and I had to pay it for 3 years or until Isabella remarried, whichever happened first. I was furious, leaving the courtroom. As I walked by Isabella, she smirked and flipped me off. I brooded over it for about a week, and then I snapped. I had been wronged by Isabella enough times that I just lost control. I terminated the homeowner's insurance and kept an eye on the house, waiting for the right moment. Days after canceling the insurance, Isabella called. The mortgage company informed me that you canceled the insurance, Rob. I did, Rob. You've put me in such a tight spot financially that I'm looking to cut costs. I can get the same coverage for a better rate. The mortgage company mentioned Allstate. They say that we need a policy on the house within 5 days or they'll secure one and charge you, Rob. I'll take care of it, Rob, she said, her voice filled with frustration. 2 days after that call, my chance arrived. Isabella left for work shortly after the kids headed to school, and at 8:30, Lucas's Explorer drove off. Once he was gone, I opened the garage door using the remote. To my surprise, it worked. I drove in, took 2 5-gallon gasoline cans from my trunk, and entered the house. After thoroughly dousing the inside, I backed my car out and set the house ablaze. From there, I headed to the airport, parked in long-term parking, and caught a flight to Panama City. There, I spent a month soaking up the sun and mingling with the ladies, some of whom I managed to impress. On my final day in Panama City, I rented a safe deposit box at a bank and paid for 10 years up front. I had emptied all my accounts before heading to Florida and stashed the cash in that box. I figured that I might face some jail time for my actions, but I didn't care. I had left Isabella high and dry. With no insurance to cover the losses from the fire, she would have nothing left. She might try to chase me down for it, but locked up or not, she wouldn't get a dime from me. Upon returning to town, I swung by the shop to collect my personal items. While there, I apologized to Frank for leaving him in a bind. He understood, having been through a rough divorce himself. He then asked if I had gotten it all out of my system and was ready to return to work. I had to say no, explaining that I would likely be going to jail. When he asked why, I told him. He laughed, saying that he wished that he had the guts to do something similar to his ex. I reached out to Mike and invited him to lunch at Mario's. When he sat down, he warned me, "You've really stirred the pot this time, Rob. Everyone's gunning for you. You would have been better off staying wherever you were. The judge viewed your actions as contempt of court, Rob, since he had ordered you to maintain the house. The DA has a laundry list of charges against you, from arson to property destruction. And, Isabella, she wants you strung up for her daily whipping sessions. But, you might find some comfort in knowing that Isabella lost her grip on keeping Lucas under a roof. How bad is it, Mike? How can they pin arson on me? It was my house, and I didn't commit insurance fraud. In fact, I canceled the insurance to prevent any claims. The mortgage company might be upset about losing their collateral, but I'm still on the hook for the loan. I even made this month's payment just last week. It was my property. I had the right to do what I wanted with it," I said, my voice filled with frustration. "In your perspective, Rob, maybe. But I can assure you that the court won't see it that way," Mike said, shaking his head. He was correct. After a month of legal back and forth, I negotiated a plea deal with the state correctional facility at Albion, serving 3 years. With good behavior, I would be eligible for parole halfway through. When parole was offered, I declined. I didn't want to subject myself to the very legal system that I had grown to despise, with its constant rules and restrictions. I ended up serving 2.5 years. During my time inside, Mike, Rachel, and Frank visited me regularly. Frank kept urging me to visit him once I was out, and Laura visited me a couple of times, insisting that I call her upon my release. While incarcerated, I also filed for bankruptcy, successfully discharging all debts except the one to the IRS. They took issue with my claiming house interest on my taxes, even though the house no longer existed. Even behind bars, the IRS demands their due, requiring tax filings and punishing income that doesn't comply with their rules. Sitting with Rachel at the Rusty Nail, sipping a cold beer, she asked me about my plans. "I'll see Frank and return to work, find an apartment, and try to rebuild some semblance of a social life," I said, my voice filled with determination. "Are you going to visit the kids, Rob?" she asked, her eyes filled with concern. "I doubt it, Rachel," I said, my voice filled with sadness. I don't want to cause them any more pain or confusion. Isabella has made it clear that she doesn't want me in their lives, and I don't want to fight her on that. It's better for them to have stability and a loving home, even if it's not with me. I'll always love them and cherish the memories we had together, but I have to move on and focus on my own life now. Rachel nodded, understanding my decision. I'll always be here for you, Rob. And I'll make sure the kids know that you love them, even if you're not around. I smiled, grateful for her support. Thanks, Rachel. You're the best sister a guy could ask for. We're glad you joined us for today's story. If you like it, please let us know by clicking the like button and leaving a comment. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new story.